The just concluded annual 66th conference of the Nigerian Economic Society ended with a resounding success. The conference garnered professors, policymakers, and students, making up over 2,000 attendees, and of course, delegates from over 22 African countries, all to deliberate and rethink Africa's development, of course, economic transformation as well. The discussion spanned through 4 days of intense intellectual engagement, from thought-provoking concurrent sessions to the most anticipated grand opening by the Vice President, His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima. And from every speech and delivery, one fact was echoed, and that is that Nigeria's strategic positioning and planning would determine Africa's development. Here's the reports. A convergence of the nation's leading economic minds took place in the federal capital city of Nigeria. These eminent scholars, policymakers, and students gathered for 4 days of intense deliberations on economic policies and reforms with the single aim of rethinking Africa's development.
Today, as we gather for our induction, fellowship, and awards day, we continue this noble tradition of recognizing excellence, nurturing talent, and celebrating achievement. The theme of our 2025 conference, Towards a Nigerian Developmental State, Lessons, Levers, and Leadership, cannot be more timely. It speaks to the fundamental questions that have occupied economies for generations.
Most significantly, on day one was the induction of 500 new members into the Nigerian Economic Society, a reflection of the expansion of the society's intellectual fountain, followed by the admission of deserving individuals as fellows of the Nigerian Economic Society, carefully chosen for their contributions to economic policy making and societal development.
Memories has been right. This is also the first time that new members will be inducted at a NES conference like this. To be recognized as a fellow is not only a mark of intellectual distinction, but also a call to continue service to society and to the nation. Today's awardees include 3 women, include political leaders, very senior government officials, academia, international diplomats, and captains of industry. These men and women have been carefully chosen for their contributions to economic policy making, the advancement of the economic profession, and also their contribution to the society.
The day progressed with a keynote speech by Bismarck J. Wayne, who spoke extensively on the journey towards achieving true and sustainable development in Nigeria and the expected game changers to boost economic growth.
Professor Killer went further to say that Nigeria is a story of individual success but collective tragedy. Now, this discourse is auspicious because Nigeria is attempting to navigate a critical path of policy optimization with a view to leapfrogging from a poverty and debt trap to a takeoff into a breakout nation. There are some game changers that we see and we are looking out towards. One is a Dangote refinery and petrochemical complex, which according to the IMF is expected employment, investment and growth, as well as support regional economic integration.
The atmosphere was electric by day 2 of the conference as the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, graced the occasion, delivering a stirring speech conveying the current administration's support to citizens facing hardship, assuring that the current storms would soon give way to bright clouds.
This administration has embarked on bold and inevitable reforms to address structural weaknesses that others before us only paid lip service to. These reforms testify to the power of political will in economic policy. Their painful but necessary consequences reminds us that a malignant disease can only be cured by painful surgery. The wounds are temporary, but the recovery is permanent. Our heart goes out to Nigerians. We know the pain they are going through, but the surgery is almost inevitable. But we are not underlying the fact that things are hard. But believe me, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, no matter how long the night is, it must give way to the line of the dawn. Stormy the weather might well be, but it won't rain forever. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the roads may have been bumpy, but our steps are firm. Consistent quarterly GDP growth, improved fiscal space, growth in external reserves, decline in inflation, stabilized exchange rates, and steady expansion of our infrastructure stock are gradually restoring investor confidence in Nigeria's economy. This is what happens when economies are not sidelined.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Finance echoed the significant progress made following the economic reforms undertaken by the Tinubu administration, owing the success to diversification of resources.
Overall, in the first half of 2025, we actually have a 40% increase in revenue, even though lower than was even projected. And so the success there is in diversification, is in non-oil revenue. And clearly, oil exports remain important, remain critical, especially in the short term, because that is where, first of all, you get foreign exchange revenue, and of course, the bulk revenue that comes from that sector for the whole federation is still significant. But oil exports, as a percentage of exports, are going down. Oil as a percentage of GDP is going down, signifying that the effort at reform, the effort at diversification of the economy is yielding results.
The third day of the conference gushed with intellectual engagement in every room and every corner, with economists, students, policymakers, all deliberating and sharing ideas across economic discourse and sustainable development amidst the reforms.
There's this narrative that we see every time, which is not helpful. And it is that people do not consider the counterfactual outcome when they're doing the analysis. There was this recent event of the MBA conference. And then Kimbaloye, asked a question. Is your life better today than it was 2 years ago? There was a chorus, loud answer, which is no. If you ask that question to 99.99% of Nigerians, the answer will be no. The problem is not with the answer, the problem is with the question. Because that question makes an invalid assumption that if the reforms had not been introduced 2 years ago, today the price of PMS will be the same thing as it was, a bag of rice will be the same thing as it was 2 years ago, and XYZ. The answer is no. If these reforms had not been introduced, and that's what Saba was also alluding to, you will hold 10,000 naira today, and you pray to find a liter of fuel. Naira will not be 1.5. You'll be glad if it's at 5,000 naira because the economy was collapsing.
The culmination of the 4-day conference was marked by a resounding success, underscoring significant outcomes and fruitful interactions, with a policy dialogue by the African Development Bank centered on driving economic transformation in transition countries. The Director General of the African Development Bank doled out figures reflecting the magnitude of development financing the African continent needs towards achieving its economic transformation goals.
And the analysis that has been done by this department, the African Development Institute, is that $811 billion is what you need annually if you really want to fully address the continent's development needs. And these needs go across infrastructure, transport, energy. And when you talk of transport, not only road transport, you're talking of rail, you're talking of air. And then you talk of, the productive sectors like agriculture.
This year's NES 66 conference significantly coincided with the Nigerian Economic Society Student Association's 14th annual conference. Students and youths share their experience engaging side by side with the players in the field.
So my key takeaway for this conference was actually that we as economists are coming together to talk about the issues in Nigerians' development, but we also have people that are making these policies or implementing these policies with us, listening to our concerns. And I believe that with them being around, I believe there will be a positive change in the way they address the issues in Nigeria.
It's been an amazing experience learning from experts, the networking sessions right from the first day. The PhD thesis competition was amazing because I got to learn a lot. And then the plenary sessions that we had, especially the industry academic relationship that we've had. Like this year has been amazing. We've had people from the government, from the private sector, and from the academia. So we are having a holistic forum for economic analysis and discussion.
A fellow member of the Nigerian Economic Society expressed excitement at the huge and significant turnout at the event and optimism towards the implementation of the recommendations made.
Over the past years, this conference stands to be different in terms of participation, student participation, the turnout of members, and as we heard, over 2,000 delegates from over 22 countries attended this conference, and we are very glad to have the Vice President coming and other eminent scholars. I particularly paid attention to those level of income that will be exempted from class. He made mention of food items that are going to be VAT-free, and how that is going to cascade into lowering cost of food in the society. I'm actually looking forward to implementation of those tax policies, which is another way of lessening the burden of fuel removal, now being replaced with a sort of tax incentives for Nigerians.
Others expressed delight on how key economic stakeholders are looking towards the green growth nexus, emphasizing that much attention be paid to creating a compendium of the key recommendations, ensuring it is properly received by policymakers.
Advise and suggest to the Nigerian Economic Society to put together a compendium of key recommendations. Let's find a way, innovative way to communicate them directly to policymakers, probably as a feedback when they go to grade them. Oh, thank you for coming. You should present this document, present to the journalists, present to media organizations to put all this set of recommendations and knowledge that have come together.
The NES conference leaves with a beacon of hope, assuring that the economic reforms are giving way to progress and sustainable economic transformation in Africa, reminding us that the call to rethink and reimagine Africa's development requires the collaborative and committed efforts of every institution and every sector. As the curtains draw on NES 66, the real journey to rethinking Africa's development is only just beginning. As participants have mentioned, attention should now shift to tabling the key recommendations before policymakers to, of course, ensure that they are adequately implemented. Until NES 67, let's keep the dialogue towards true economic transformation in Africa alive. That's a wrap on today's episode of Green Footprints. I'm Tonio Gubanjo. It's bye for now.